Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you love history, you're in for a wild ride today. We're about to uncover some crazy historical facts that you probably never learned in school. Because let's face it, history tends to leave out the juiciest details. I'm talking about the bizarre, the hidden, and the downright unbelievable events that time tried to erase. Trust me, you're going to be shocked by some of these. So, hit that subscribe button and let's dive into the weirdest parts of our past. First up, let's talk about a war, but not just any war. This one was fought between humans and emus. Yep, you heard me right, emus. In 1932, Australia declared war on these large, flightless birds. The Great Emu War saw farmers in Western Australia struggling to protect their crops from emu invasions. The birds were so numerous and persistent that the Australian military stepped in to help. Armed with machine guns, soldiers were sent to take down the emus. But the birds were shockingly fast and clever. In the end, the emus won the battle and the military had to withdraw. The Emu War is one of the most embarrassing moments in Australian history, and it's totally real. Honestly, if they made a movie about this, it would be a comedy hit. Speaking of strange things that history tried to sweep under the rug, let's talk about the Dancing Plague of 1518. Imagine this. A woman in Strasbourg, which was part of the Holy Roman Empire at the time, suddenly starts dancing uncontrollably in the streets. Seems harmless, right? But then, more and more people join in, dancing for hours, days, and sometimes even weeks. By the end of the month, over 400 people were affected, with some dancing themselves to exhaustion or even death. Theories range from mass hysteria to ergot poisoning, a kind of fungal infection from rye that can cause hallucinations and strange behavior. But to this day, no one knows for sure what caused it. It's one of history's most bizarre and mysterious events. Okay, this next fact is just mind-blowing. There was a man who survived 2 atomic bombings during World War II. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, and in August 1945, he was in Hiroshima when the first bomb dropped. Somehow, he survived that explosion, suffering burns and injuries, but managed to make it back to his hometown of Nagasaki, only to be there when the second bomb fell just days later. You would think that someone would be completely doomed after experiencing one atomic bombing, but Tsutomu lived through both. He survived to tell his incredible story, and later became an advocate for peace, which is truly inspiring given everything he went through. Let's talk about one of the most iconic figures in history, Cleopatra. We've all heard about the Queen of Egypt who charmed Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, right? But here's a crazy fact. Cleopatra wasn't actually Egyptian. While she ruled Egypt, Cleopatra was of Greek descent, coming from the Ptolemaic dynasty which took control of Egypt after Alexander the Great's death. Her family had been ruling Egypt for nearly 300 years, but they were Greek, not Egyptian. Cleopatra was actually the first of her line to speak the Egyptian language and embrace Egyptian culture. So, while she's remembered as the Queen of the Nile, her roots were more Mediterranean than African. Talk about a twist in history. And speaking of pharaohs, Cleopatra wasn't even the first woman to rule Egypt. That title goes to Sobekneferu, who reigned in the 12th dynasty way back in 1800 BC. Sobekneferu wasn't just a figurehead, she was the full-on ruler of Egypt, and she's often overlooked in history books. Her reign lasted only about 4 years, but she left an undeniable mark on Egypt's history, taking charge during a period of political upheaval. Sobekneferu was one of the few women in ancient history who had the power to rule a vast civilization, and yet she's almost forgotten in favor of later, more famous queens like Cleopatra. History really has a way of erasing the achievements of women, doesn't it? Now let's shift gears and talk about a hero who is truly, positively amazing. During the 1900s, the British Navy was involved in the sinking of the infamous ship, the HMS Amethyst, in the Yangtze River. The ship was stuck in enemy territory for several weeks, and supplies were running low. But guess who saved the day? A cat named Simon. This feline not only kept the sailors' spirits up during the tense standoff, but he also managed to catch rats that threatened the ship's food supply. Simon became a symbol of hope, even earning a medal for his service. And despite all the chaos, Simon was there, proving once again that cats are, in fact, secretly in charge of everything. Now, we all know the story of the Trojan horse, right? The Greeks used a giant wooden horse to sneak into the city of Troy and win the war. But here's the mind-blowing part. The Trojan horse might not be entirely mythological. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence that suggests a large wooden structure similar to the Trojan horse was indeed used in ancient warfare. While it might not have been as large or as fantastical as Homer's story, the idea of tricking enemies with hidden soldiers inside a structure might have been a real tactic. So, while it sounds like something out of a legend, there's a good chance that history was just a bit more clever than we thought. And speaking of ancient figures, let's talk about one of the most mysterious deaths in history, Alexander the Great. This guy, who conquered most of the known world before he was 33, just died suddenly in 323 BC. Theories abound about how he met his end. Some say it was natural causes like malaria or fever, while others believe he was poisoned. But here's the twist. Historians still aren't sure what happened. Did he die from a deadly disease, or was he taken out by his own generals? Some think it was a political assassination. No one truly knows, and that's what makes his death one of history's greatest mysteries. Now, this one is a bit darker, but fascinating nonetheless. The guillotine, the infamous device used during the French Revolution, was supposed to be a more humane way of executing people. Before the guillotine, beheadings were carried out with axes and swords, which often resulted in slow, messy executions. The guillotine, invented by Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotin, was meant to be a quick, efficient, and painless method of execution. But ironically, it became a symbol of terror, particularly during the Reign of Terror, where thousands of people met their end by the blade. History has a way of twisting good intentions into something darker. So, there you have it, some crazy historical facts that were hidden from you, or just plain overlooked in the textbooks. History is full of weird, unexpected moments that deserve more attention. Which fact blew your mind the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more weird and wild history, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.